folder landed on the kitchen island with a sound that Madeleine Vos Henley, 38-year-old director of the Henley Community Land Trust, would not forget for the rest of her life. It wasn't loud. That was the thing. It was barely more than a slap of paper against marble, but the way her husband set it down, the controlled, deliberate way, the kind of quiet that precedes something terrible, made the whole kitchen go still. "I need you to explain this," Garrett said. Not Garrett Henley, 44-year-old Chief Development Officer of Northfield Capital Partners, the man she had spent 11 years building a life with in their Westmount home. Not the man who had kissed her forehead that morning before leaving for the office, just Garrett. A stranger in a grey suit who could not look her in the eye. Madeleine set down her coffee. She pulled the folder toward her and opened it. It was a property transfer document. Her signature was on page 4. She had never seen page 4 before in her life. She had married Garrett at 31, in a small ceremony outside Tremblant, the kind of wedding where the guest list fit on one page and the flowers came from her mother's garden. She had been working for the Land Trust for 3 years by then, managing affordable housing initiatives across Montreal's West End, and she believed, the way you believe something that has never been tested, that she had chosen correctly. That Garrett was a steady man. That steady was enough. For a while it was. He was the kind of husband who remembered her coffee order but forgot her sister's birthday, who could close a real estate deal on a handshake but could not say "I'm sorry" without qualifying it. She had made peace with those things. She had made peace with a lot of things. What she had not made peace with, what she had not even let herself look at directly, was the woman named Isabeau Carré. Isabeau Carré was 31 years old and had joined Northfield Capital Partners 14 months ago as an acquisitions associate. Madeleine had met her once at the firm's autumn reception on Sherbrooke Street and had shaken her hand and thought nothing of it. There was nothing to think. Isabeau was polished, professionally warm, and entirely forgettable. Until she wasn't. The first sign was not lipstick on a collar or a late meeting that ran too long. It was subtler than that. It was the way Garrett's phone began sleeping face down on the nightstand. It was the way his posture changed on certain calls, the particular way a person's shoulder rises when they are trying to take up less space. It was the fact that he had started eating lunch at his desk instead of walking to the deli on St. Catherine where he had eaten every Tuesday and Thursday for a decade. Madeleine noticed all of it. She noticed and said nothing, the way you stay very quiet when you hear something moving in the dark and you are not yet sure what it is. She had learned to go quiet from her grandmother, Ottiline Vos, who had grown up in Winnipeg and survived 3 winters that killed cattle and at least 2 marriages that should have killed her spirit. Her grandmother used to say, "Be still, let things show themselves, they always do." So Madeleine was still, and things showed themselves. The folder Garrett had placed on the island contained a transfer of title for a parcel of land in Laval, a mixed-use development site that Northfield had been pursuing for 7 months. The document bore Madeleine's signature on the authorization line. She had authorized, according to the document, the removal of a covenant that had protected the land's affordable housing requirement since 1987. She had done no such thing. "Where did you get this?" she said. It did not come out as a question. "The city registry," Garrett said. "It was flagged in a compliance audit. My signature is forged, Madeleine." I said, "My signature is forged, Garrett. I have never seen this document. I have never authorized anything related to this property. Who handled the filing?" He looked at the window, at the garden, at the neighbor's maple that had been dropping leaves for 2 weeks. "The acquisitions team," he said. "Isabeau Carré," she said. He didn't answer, which was its own kind of answer. She closed the folder. She picked up her coffee. It had gone cold. "I'll need to take this," she said. "The compliance office. I'll need to take this," she said again. "And I'll need you to leave the kitchen." What Garrett did not know about Madeleine Vos Henley, what almost no one knew, because she had never seen any reason to make it known, was that she had not taken the land trust job out of financial necessity. She had taken it because she believed in it. Because her mother, Cécile Vos, had believed in it before her. Because her grandmother's grandmother had built low-income housing in the north end of Winnipeg with money no bank would have touched. The Vos family did not put their name on buildings. They did not hold press events or accept civic awards or allow their photograph to appear in the business sections of newspapers. What they did was acquire, quietly and persistently, for 3 generations. By the time Madeleine was born, the Vos Family Trust held interests in approximately 40 commercial and residential properties across Quebec and Manitoba, managed through a holding company most people in Montreal's real estate world had never heard of because it operated under 7 different numbered corporations. The Laval site that bore Madeleine's forged signature was not, as Northfield Capital believed, a vacant parcel they were acquiring from a small municipal land bank. It sat on land that the Voss family trust had optioned in 1994. Madeleine knew this because she managed the trust, had managed it since her mother's death 4 years ago. The covenant on that land, the affordable housing covenant that Garrett's acquisitions team had just illegally removed, existed because Madeleine's mother had insisted on it, had written it into the option agreement herself, had said in the dry and particular way Cecil Voss had of saying things, "This one doesn't move." Madeleine sat at her kitchen table after Garrett left the room and turned this information over in her mind the way you turn something heavy before you decide how to put it down. Then she called her lawyer. Her lawyer was a woman named Bettine Okafor Marsh, who worked out of an office on McGill College Avenue and had represented the Voss Trust for 9 years. Bettine had known Madeleine's mother. She had attended Cecil's funeral. She was in the way of certain professional relationships that outlast their original terms, something close to family. "Someone filed a title transfer on the Laval parcel," Madeleine said, using my signature. There was a silence on the line when, Bettine said, 6 weeks ago, based on the registry date. "Who at Northfield?" "I don't have confirmation, but the acquisitions associate assigned to that file is a woman named Isabeau Carré. I need to know everything that moved on that parcel in the last 8 months. I'll have it by tomorrow morning." "Tonight," Madeleine said. Another silence. "Then tonight," Bettine said. She did not sleep that night. She sat in the small office off the upstairs hallway, the one Garrett called the reading room, and she called the place where she thought, and she went through every document she could pull on the Laval site. The original option agreement, the 1994 covenant, the updated trust assessments from 2019 and 2022. The preliminary interest Northfield had registered with the city in February. She cross-referenced Northfield's public filings. She looked at Isabeau Carré's LinkedIn profile, her conference appearances, the panel she had moderated on urban intensification in March. She looked at the timing of Garrett's behavioral changes, the face-down phone, the changed lunch habits, and she set them against the 8-month timeline on the Laval acquisition. The affair and the forgery had started within 3 weeks of each other. She wrote that down. She wrote it down and looked at it and felt, not anger exactly, but something colder. The particular coldness that comes when a thing you had refused to know becomes something you cannot unknow. She thought about her grandmother. She thought about Cecile. She thought about the women in her family who had survived things by going very still and letting the situation clarify. The situation was clarifying. Bettine called at 11:20. "The transfer was processed through a third-party title company in Laval," she said. "Small firm, incorporated 2021. The signatory on the filing is listed as your authorized agent, but there's no agency agreement on file with the trust. Whoever did this either had access to a sample of your signature or used a good forger, or both," Madeleine said. "The covenant was struck from the title on the same date the transfer was processed, which means whoever did this understood exactly what they were removing and why. This wasn't a clerical error." "No," Madeleine agreed. "It wasn't." "Do you want me to notify the registry?" "Not yet. I want to understand the full shape of it first, Madeleine." Bettine's voice had the careful quality of someone choosing words deliberately. "If Northfield closes on this property under the assumption that the covenant has been removed, they'll have built an entire financing structure on a fraudulent title. The whole deal collapses." "I know. The liability." "I know," Madeleine said. "I need 3 days." She spent those 3 days the way her mother had always told her to spend difficult time, doing exactly what she would normally do. She went to the Land Trust office on St. Ambrose. She attended her Tuesday morning team meeting. She approved a grant application from a housing cooperative in NDG. She responded to emails about a rezoning consultation in Côte d'Ivoire. She did all of this with the particular calm of a person who has decided something but has not yet acted on it. At home, she watched Garrett without watching him. She noticed how he had begun coming home later, how the quality of his guilt had changed, less avoidant now, more performative. He brought home wine twice that week without being asked. He asked about her day with the careful attention of a man who was trying to remember to do that. She answered him. She ate dinner across from him. She passed the salt when he needed it. On the second evening, he said, "Have you heard anything more about that Laval file?" "From the compliance office," she said. "Nothing yet." "It's probably a clerical thing," he said. "These things get sorted." "Yes," she said. "They do." What Garrett also did not know, what the entire Northfield Capital Partners Board did not know, was that the Laval parcel was not the only Voss Trust asset that Northfield had proximity to. In 2021, the year Northfield had begun its aggressive expansion into Quebec's mid-market commercial real estate sector, the Voss Trust had quietly acquired a minority interest in 2 of the firm's key lending partners. Not a controlling interest, not enough to trigger disclosure, but enough that when Madeline called a particular contact at one of those lenders on the Wednesday afternoon of her 3-day window, that contact took the call in the first ring. His name was Devereux Nkosi, and he was the senior risk officer at a private credit firm called Archway Capital Group, which had committed to financing 32% of Northfield's Laval acquisition. "I need to flag something on the Laval deal," she said. "I'm listening," he said. "The covenant that was removed from the title, it wasn't validly removed. The authorization is fraudulent. I'm the trust manager, and I did not sign that document." A pause. "How confident are you?" "Completely." Another pause longer. "If this is accurate," he said carefully, "Archway's position on this deal is based on a fraudulent title transfer," she said. "Yes, I need you to hold disbursement until the registry matter is resolved." "That will hold the deal, Devereux." On Thursday morning, Madeline asked Garrett to sit down. They were in the kitchen again. The island between them, the folder gone, nothing on the marble surface except her coffee mug and the particular quality of morning light in late October that comes through the garden window and turns everything a color that is almost kind. "The Laval deal is going to fall through," she said. He looked at her. "Archway is holding disbursement pending a title review. The registry has been notified that the covenant removal was based on a fraudulent authorization." She paused. "My authorization? Madeline, I didn't sign that document, Garrett. You know I didn't. And I think you've known for some time that something on that file was wrong." He was very still. The stillness of a person who has been waiting for a particular conversation and cannot now determine which direction it will go. "I didn't know it was forged," he said. "I didn't know about the authorization until the audit. But you knew about Isabeau's involvement with the file." He looked away. "And you knew about your involvement with Isabeau." The kitchen was very quiet. Somewhere outside, a delivery truck moved up the street. The neighbor's maple dropped 2 leaves. "I don't know what you think I don't," she said. Not loudly, not with particular emotion. "Just don't. The way you say don't to something that has already happened." He stopped. "I'm not going to go through the evidence with you," she said. "I'm not going to ask you to explain the phone or the lunches or the 6 weeks between when that filing happened and when you decided to bring me that folder. I'm going to tell you what's happening instead, because I think that's more useful." She picked up her coffee, set it down. "Isabeau Carré filed a fraudulent title transfer using a forged version of my signature to remove a covenant that my family put on that land 30 years ago. She did this to clear the way for a deal that would make Northfield a significant profit and presumably secure her own position at the firm. Whether you knew the specifics of what she did, I'll leave for the investigation to determine. But the deal is dead. The financing is pulled, and the registry now has a formal complaint on file." Garrett's face had gone the particular color of a person recalculating. "The trust," he said slowly. "That land has been in my family since 1994, she said. "Yes, you never told me. The trust had that property. I never told you a great many things," she said, "because they weren't relevant to you. They're relevant now." He was quiet for a long moment. "Madeline, if this goes to the Securities Commission, if it becomes public—" "It will become public," she said. "That's not my decision to make. A fraudulent filing is a matter of public record. My position at Northfield is not something I can protect," she said. "I'm sorry, but that's true." She stood up. She rinsed her coffee mug. She dried it with the towel that hung from the oven handle, the blue linen one she had bought in a market in Charlevoix the summer before her mother died, and she hung it back with the precision of a person who knows where everything belongs. "I'm going to the land trust," she said. "Bettine will be in touch with you about next steps on the registry matter. I'd suggest you get your own counsel." "Madeline," he said it quietly. The quiet of a man who is beginning to understand the full dimension of what he has done. She picked up her bag. "The affordable housing covenant on that land," she said at the kitchen doorway, "is being reinstated. My mother wrote that covenant. It doesn't move." She said it the way Cécile Voss would have said it. Dry, precise, final. Then she went to work. The investigation took 4 months. The Quebec Financial Markets Authority opened a file within 2 weeks of Bettine's formal complaint. The title company in Laval, the small one incorporated in 2021, turned out to have processed 2 other questionable transfers in the past 18 months, both linked to Northfield's acquisition pipeline. The forger was identified through handwriting analysis and a paper trail that led, in the inevitable way these things lead, directly to a billing address registered to Isabeau Carré's numbered corporation. Isabeau resigned from Northfield in November, which was 11 days before the firm's board received the regulator's preliminary findings. The resignation letter cited personal reasons. The board did not contest it. Garrett's position was more complicated. The investigation found no evidence that he had commissioned the forgery or known the specifics of what Isabeau had done. It found significant evidence that he had been aware the Laval file contained irregularities and had chosen not to escalate. His counsel negotiated his departure from Northfield in December as a condition of the board's cooperation with the regulator. He received no severance beyond what was legally required. He left the Westmount house in November. He took his suits, his golf clubs, the espresso machine he had bought the previous Christmas, and a painting of the Laurentians that had always been more his than hers. He left the blue linen towel. Madeleine was offered a settlement by Northfield's insurers in January. The figure was significant. Her lawyer called it extremely fair. Bettine said, with the particular careful inflection she used when she had an opinion she was not expressing. "It's more than you'd likely receive from litigation." Madeleine read the offer twice. She sat with it for a day. Then she called Bettine. "I'm not taking it," she said. "Madeleine, not because I want more money," she said. "I want a formal public acknowledgement from Northfield that the covenant removal was fraudulent. I want it in the press release they issue when they close their regulatory file. And I want the title corrected in a way that reinstates the full original covenant language, not a negotiated version of it." Silence. "They won't like that," Bettine said. "No," Madeleine agreed. "They won't. The settlement. The money isn't the point," Madeleine said. "The covenant is the point. My mother's name is effectively on that land. I'm not trading a clear title for a quiet settlement." Another silence. Then Bettine made a sound that was not quite a laugh but was adjacent to one. "I'll call their counsel," she said. It took 6 more weeks. There were 3 rounds of negotiation, 1 very tense conference call, and a draft press release that went through 11 versions. But in the end, Northfield's public statement, issued on a Wednesday morning in late February, included a clear and unqualified acknowledgement that the covenant removal had been based on a forged authorization, that the Voss family trust had not consented to any modification of the title, and that the covenant had been fully reinstated in its original form. The affordable housing requirement on that Laval land, the one Cecil Voss had written in 1994, was intact. The statement went out to the wire services at 9 in the morning. By 10, Madeleine's phone had more messages than she could reasonably read. She read the ones from her sister first, then the ones from her land trust colleagues, then one from Devereux and Cossey, which was formal but warm, then one from her grandmother's oldest friend, a woman named Yvette, who was 84 years old and lived in a retirement community near Gimli, Manitoba, who had somehow seen the news and written, "Your mother would be glad." Madeleine sat with that one for a while. She was asked, in the months that followed, by a journalist working on a piece about covenant fraud in Quebec's housing market, whether she had ever considered simply taking the settlement, whether the fight had been worth it. She thought about how to answer that. She thought about her grandmother's kitchen in Winnipeg, the particular smell of it, the way Ottoline Voss had kept her important documents in a bread box on the second shelf because she had never fully trusted filing cabinets. She thought about Cecile sitting at a table in a lawyer's office in 1994, writing the covenant language herself with a pen she had brought from home because she had not trusted anyone else to get the words right. "The settlement would have solved my problem," Madeleine said. "The covenant solves theirs." The journalist wrote it down, looked up. "Theirs? The people who live in those buildings," she said. "In 15 years, 20 years, they don't know any of this happened. They don't know my mother's name or my grandmother's name or any of it. They'll just have housing they can afford. That's what the covenant is for. That's what it was always for." She paused. "You don't trade that for a check. Not if you're paying attention to what you're actually protecting."